Greetings and welcome to those who are joining us online. Today we are going to begin what will be a series of interviews with individuals, family members who have been personally impacted by mental health and some of the challenges it poses. We are here today as part of Real Talk segments. Real people, real talk. This is sponsored by the Jasmine T. Bryant Brighter Day Fund, and we are so thrilled to be in position to offer real hope, real talk, and real assistance to people who are really journeying through some very challenging things. Tonight's guest is Pastor Atiba Rose.
Hello.
And I am Le-Toyja Averhard. I guess I should let people know that. So tonight, Pastor Rose and I are just going to have a conversation about his experience with mental health and the journey of grief. I'd like to caution our listeners that we're not going to tiptoe around the topic. We're going to share some pretty serious and impactful things. So I want to caution you to lean in and to listen closely, to be mindful of little ears in the audience. Our goal and our desire is to really minister help for those who stand in need. And so we're going to begin that this evening with Pastor Rose. And so, Pastor, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being willing to share. I read recently that vulnerable actually is a mix of two Latin words. One means wound, and the other means ability. And so just your vulnerability in being here is greatly appreciated. And I'm going to say thank you in advance for the lives that will be changed and the hope that will come from hearing your story and your testimony. And with that, I'm going to invite you to do just that. Tell us your story, sir.
Well, again, my name is Pastor Rose, Atiba Rose, pastor of Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Mullica Hill. I won't go right into the story. I married, have 4 boys, biological boys, and I am the father of a son who suffered through mental illness. His bipolar, had some emotional, had a tough time in school, but of course, when we were young, we were married young, we had kids young, we were young and dumb and thought nothing was wrong with our child, and so therefore we did not go and seek the help that we probably should have sought until later. And I just know that if we would have done something earlier, maybe things could have been a little bit different for him in his high school career. Even in high school, he didn't actually finish high school. He did get his GED, but because of those emotional issues, he couldn't sit in a classroom with a teacher and do certain things. But he was very bright. He was about to skip second to third grade. So it wasn't because he wasn't intellectual. It was just because that mental illness really had that effect on him. So I did deal with that, but also currently dealing with grief because that same son passed away on Thanksgiving Day in 2020. And I remember on that day in 2020, all 4 of my boys were at my house. We're having a good time, and it was probably about 3 or 4 o'clock, and they were going to their biological mother's house. And so they left, and my wife and I were there, and just going through our normal things. And we got a call at around 9:22 p.m. I missed a call. It was one of my sons, my youngest son, who called. And then I texted him. I said, "Did you mean to call?" Because many times we just do it by accident. And then his friend called, and I picked up the phone, and he said, "Atiba's been shot." It didn't make sense to me. My son is not in that life. He's not around anywhere. He doesn't own anything. He's not a violent person or anything like that. And I couldn't imagine what happened. And they told me where it was. And and I got my wife, and we're rushing in the car, and I'm pleading with God the whole way, and saying, "Lord, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just hoping the best." And and I arrived to the scene. And they wouldn't let me go any further down the road. I hop out the car. I told my wife, "You get in the car," and I'm running down, and they had it marked off, and I said, I didn't care, and I, bust through there, and a policeman stopped me, and I said, "No, that's my son. I want to get to my son." And he said, no, he's all right. He's all right. He's conscious. They have him in, in an ambulance, and all you got to do go down to Cooper, get in the car and go down there and be fine. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm all right, So we get to Cooper Hospital, and we're in the room, and we're waiting to hear, and then eventually the doctor comes, and he says, well, he lost a lot of blood. And I said, and he's like, we were working on him, and I'm still waiting for the butt. I'm still waiting for, and he said, and we did all we can. And it didn't make sense to me, and it didn't hit me yet. And he said, and we did all we can. And I just burst crying out like a baby. I've never wailed like that in my life. And even as I go back, one thing I can say is, and I still carry this and it hurts, is that police officer who told me that everything was okay was just trying to calm me down and was not honest with me. And I know that I could have gotten to the back or near the back of that ambulance where the door was open, and I could have said, Atiba, and he could have heard his dad's voice. Because I was always the one who got him out, always the one who was there, always the one he can call on when it, but I never had that opportunity. So that still kind of hurts now that he never heard my voice and for him to fight. But that was tough. So, he passed away, and still dealing with it 13, 14 months later, and even 3 days ago, still crying like a baby. And the grief just comes and it goes, and it's tough, it's tough. So that's the story. That's actually a condensed story, believe it or not.
First, I want to extend my condolences. I'm a mom, and you're a dad. I can only imagine what you and your family are still walking through. Can you share with us a little? You're a pastor. You're a man of God. Mm-hmm. How has this impacted your faith?
Well, I can say it didn't shake it. But as anyone deals with grief, you go through those stages.
Yeah.
So of course I was in denial, and then, I was angry. How? Why? Although I know the Word of God, and although I know, all things will work together, and I know, God has a plan, but you still say, why? And then you bargain, Atiba Jr., why not take Atiba Sr.? He's supposed to bury me, not the opposite, and I'm going back and forth with God. And not that I did not believe in His Word, not that I didn't have faith, but I just didn't want to accept it. Yeah. Depression, I didn't really stay in that too much. And, and I accept what it is. And sometimes when I tell the story, everyone's like, a lot of people are saying, well, you need to be able to accept. No, I accept it, but my heart still hurts. Yeah. And that's, so that's, what it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's so significant. I think so often in various faith traditions, we have this hurry up and get well. Yeah. God's got it and let's move on. Right. We don't typically do well with journeying with people through grief, through illness. I've shared before, once upon a time, I was one of those, I'm good for a quick trip. Meaning, if you want me to pray with you about something that's going to be maybe, 3 to 6 months, I'm good. Anything after that, you should probably get somebody a little more seasoned. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, we know that this is the world we live in. Yeah. And these are the situations and scenarios we will encounter in life. Can you talk to us a little bit about how it's changed the way you counsel and how you approach others? You and I had a quick conversation prior to sitting down together. Yeah. This idea that I believe it's 1st or 2nd Peter talks about the God of all comfort. Mm-hmm. And so we receive comfort from God, so we're able to minister that comfort. Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely. I've learned through this that I can never say, I know how you feel. Because going through this, I know that that's not true. You do not know how someone else feels. Even if you went through the same thing, the relationship that you may have had and they had with that person is different. So you don't really know how they feel. And so it's when I went through this and going through this, I literally had to call people that went through this and lost a child and had to apologize. Because as a pastor, I realized that I did not comfort the way I should have comforted. And it wasn't because I didn't do it right. It's just that I didn't know that this is what they were dealing with it until I went through it. Yeah. And then I understood that, after the funeral, it's not over. After 2 months, 3 months, it's not over. They still need that encouraging text. They still need that encouraging word. They still need a year later, 2 years later, I'm still thinking about you. I'm still praying for you. And when you think that people get over it, you want people to get back to normal. And the thing is, they won't. It's just a new normal. Yeah. And so that really hit me. So now when I'm dealing with someone who is dealing with grief, I handle it totally different, just because I know how I felt. I know what I went through, and again, they may be going through something different, but I know what, sort of what they need, based upon the needs that I still have, the calls have stopped, the texts have stopped, you still have those faithful few who every once in a while, but those faithful few are the ones who went through, and they understand. Yeah, they understand.
That's so good, sir. That's so good. Just want to back up a little bit. You talked some about your son's mental health struggles, and you said, how you felt when he was younger, and this idea that not my kid. Not my kid. Talk to me a little bit about that, and then maybe what led you and your family, your wife, to seek help.
Again, and we always believe that our children are perfect and nothing's wrong with them. And we can see it early in his life. He was very sensitive. You couldn't yell at him. I had to discipline him differently than my younger kids, and he was the older one. Even when my sons got out of line, sometimes I did give him a little tap. Atiba, if I went like this and he thought that he would just, and he was the older one. But I still didn't catch it. I just thought that he was just emotional, I think the divorce affected him the most as well. Again, because he was 9 years old, 10 years old. And when that happened, he was older, and I think that kind of added something to it as well. But again, being young, and I'm going to say it and dumb, this is something, it'll iron itself out. We will pray it away, and we'll just put it in God's hands, and we don't have to go seek any help or anything like that. When he got to high school, and he was dealing with it to the point where he couldn't stay in a class, he had to walk out, and he would walk out of school, and I couldn't figure out, why are you walking out of school? My kids aren't bad. They're not fighters. They're not anything like that. But that's literally what he would do. He would get so built up that he would walk out. I remember being in a guidance counselor session, and we're talking, and I'm there, and the teachers were there, the principal was there, and this and that. And we were just talking about, Tiba, we love you. And it was too much love, and he couldn't take it. Wow. And when he wanted to get up and leave because it was too much, he couldn't take too much love, and he couldn't take too much of the opposite, because it would just be too much. And that's when I said, we have to, get some help. And I think it was too late. And I don't think it was enough. He would go see people, but I don't think it was enough. And then when he got out of high school, he went down to Florida to go to college, Full Sail University. And I remember him calling me and said, Dad, there's something really wrong, and I really need to, see someone. And that's when he went and he saw someone, and he was getting, some deep counseling, to the point they even gave him a service dog. Wow. Because that helped him get through some of the things that he went through. So when I look back, there were signs, but I ignored them because of pride, because you think, nothing's wrong with, they're okay. But those signs were there. Those red flags were there. But I just didn't catch them, and I just didn't do anything. And as I reflect back, I wish I did. Yeah.
I just want to interject here. As parents, and I'm sure you know this, and I have no doubt that you have extended this grace to other parents, and you've extended this grace to your parents. I really just want to encourage you, sir, to extend the same grace to yourself. You would never intentionally do anything in the world to harm your child, and you know that. Mm-hmm. And when we do know better, we do better.
That's right.
I don't believe God or anybody else is going to ever hold us accountable for what we did not know. Mm-hmm. And so I would hope that out of this conversation, you and anybody else listening who may be struggling with, I should have did this, I should have did that. Mm-hmm. When we can't find an external to blame, often we'll turn it back on ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I earnestly believe that's a trick of the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you and I had that conversation earlier, that John 9 mentality.
Right.
That says, this happened, who sinned? Mm-hmm. Whose fault is it? I have learned and would share with you prayerfully to encourage you that there are things that we'll not be able to explain.
Right. And
that even if Jesus himself showed up and walked us through, it wouldn't satisfy the ache or the hurt. There is resolution, and it won't come in this life. It's in the by and by. And though that may not help you immediately rest tonight, my prayer for you, and this is just a woman of God talking to a man of God, that you would no longer allow the voice of the adversary or even your own to accuse you. Mm-hmm. Atiba Jr. is not suffering. Atiba Sr. should not either. Mm. Though grief lasts, you'll journey through. I guess my final question would be, what would you say to someone journeying through grief right now? What is your counsel?
You know, you realize when you go through who really cares, who's really there. And one thing I learned, and I'm sure we all learned about people, no matter how close they are to you, they're there sometimes and they're there not sometimes, because they have their own lives. They'll answer the phone at this time and sometimes they won't. They'll answer the door and sometimes they won't. You know, they'll answer your text and sometimes they won't. What I'm saying is people are in and out. You have to have something that's constant. And the only thing that's got me through this far is God, because he's been constant. Whenever I called on him, he's there. Whenever I need comfort, he's there. Whenever I'm feeling down, he's there. You know, he always answers the door, always answers my call, always answers my text. And so therefore you have to have something constant, and that constant thing that is able to carry me on day to day when I'm in tears, able to carry me on when I just want to literally give up. It helps me carry on when I just want to throw my hands up, is knowing that God is with me with every step that I take. And if it had not been for him, if it is not for him, I could not do this interview. I could not talk about it. I almost started getting a little choked up as I'm talking about it, but he sent that comfort to be able to get even through this now. I don't know how good I'm going to be on the way home, but still, even at those times, he is with me, just reminding me that just what you said, that Atiba is okay, and that you don't have to suffer a while in here. So when I cry because I miss.
Yeah.
I cry because I think of all the things that Atiba may have missed and the things that he could have enjoyed, or things that I experienced, and those things I think about. Yeah. But I'm just thankful that God sends me that comfort, that I'm able to get through this time of grief. And so that's what I would advise someone is you need that constant in your life. And the only thing that's constant is the Lord.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, sir. You're preaching. And my hope is that you and your family continue to journey. And, there's no such thing as a quick trip with grief. We understand. But that 23rd Psalm. I know you know it.
Oh, yes.
His rod and his staff.
That's right.
All the way through that valley. And my hope, as we stated at the beginning, is that someone else finds encouragement and they find the resolve and the willingness to continue to persist and to endure because of your example, because of your testimony. I'll leave you with what, again, talking to a man of God, he doesn't waste anything. The broken pieces, the broken loaves and fishes, he gathered them all up. And so my prayer is that he does that for you and your family, that you guys continue to walk and do so in a way that brings glory to the Comforter, the constant in your life. For those of you who may have questions or concerns, I am sure we will have something posted in the chat and make resources available, because we understand this is not a unique situation. We recognize where we sit. We're in South Jersey. We're just outside of Philadelphia. I think the city of Philadelphia had 500 murders last year. So there are so many other moms and dads and siblings and grandmothers who need to hear and need the benefit of the resources and the experiences that are on your screen right now and will be on your screen the rest of the week as we honor Jasmine T. Bryant, as we celebrate her life and celebrate the lives of those who have been impacted by that same challenge, but yet remain to give testimony. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for
sharing.
Me.
So appreciate your vulnerability, your transparency. Glad to meet you.
You as well.
Glad to know you. God bless you, sir.
God bless.
Have an awesome day.
You too.